content marketing is not new. It's been around for obviously years, and there've been many companies that have really built themselves on successful content marketing strategies. Where are we at with content marketing? It used to be kind of like, hey, content marketing equaled, blog posts and SEO. Where are we at today?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, I think we are interestingly still chasing organic search results. I want to rank for a couple of terms: content marketing, employee activation, which is the term I like to use for what you might call advocacy, marketing speakers, because I get paid to speak at conferences. So I write a lot about event marketing in order to do that. So, interestingly, I wrote an article just the other week that the business case for content marketing and for marketing, I think in general, is still organic search results. And Google and all of the search engines are changing their algorithms every day. We've got voice search and semantic search and all kinds of different stuff. But it still comes down to, are you doing the things to become an authority on a topic? And that's just another way of saying SEO or search or organic, traffic. So interestingly, that's still the thing that we're all chasing. And I think, some folks in the content industry sometimes get confused. The other thing that I think is still not solved. Here's the question I hear. Everybody is creating content now. So how do you break through the noise? Mm-hmm. Which is it's the perspective of we as consumers sitting at our, laptops or phones, and all the content that's available to us is overwhelming. When you change the perspective, and again, I try to take a business owner sort of point of view. When you look at a company, and I've done this now for 36 companies where I've done a content audit. And in every single case, the number of, or the percentage of assets that are created and never used is 60%. The average is, I think, something like 64%, according to Serious Decisions. It used to be 56%. So what does that mean? It means that companies are getting worse at creating content that actually gets used at all. And so one of the things that I think is really interesting in content marketing is that, one of the business cases is stop creating stuff that is ineffective. But we can even lower the bar and say, let's just stop creating stuff that we don't use. And yet we're creating more and more of that stuff every day. So if we change the perspective, when I answer that question, well, there's so much noise out in the world. Well, look inside your company and how much waste you're generating, how much budget you're spending on content that no one is ever going to see. Why does it get created is the next question, right? The reason it gets created, it's my most tweetable tweet. Every piece of bad content gets created because an executive asked for it. And I say that like it's funny, but it's sad because it's a cop out. It's every marketer feels the pain of that, and yet we're the ones who sometimes are the ones asking for the stuff that doesn't get used. And so, it's easy for everyone to point a finger at executives or salespeople or product people and say we created a brochure because they asked us to. Marketers especially have to take accountability. If we think of it as our own money, we're not going to go spend it and waste it on things that we know aren't going to work. So we need to push back. We need to have a business mind to say this isn't the right thing to do, even if you think it is. Let me show you what's a better way. And I think that's a skill that at least marketers are struggling with.
Okay, so if 60+% of content being produced isn't being used, how do you think about that? I mean, at the very extreme end, should it be that obviously there's going to be some things that will probably be needed for internal use, only, but should as close to 100% of, it's kind of like in the software world, ship early and ship often, right? Like get stuff out there. Do you think about content in terms of like, look, if you're going to invest in anything, like it should really be something that you ship, that you expose on a public basis, or how do you think about that?
Completely. Yeah. And your original question, what's where are we going with content marketing? The real answer. So the answer I gave you is we still suck. We're still really bad at creating good content. Mm-hmm. What's the answer? The answer is we need to activate our employees. So go find a group of 15 individuals in your company, give them access to a platform, and allow them to create and share. Don't go out and ask people to create stuff that's never going to get published or shared. And so, yeah, it should only be shippable stuff. And that's really what it comes down to. Otherwise, you could debate all day long of whether a brochure that you created that no one ever saw would have been effective if it was, if there was paid promotion behind it, or if it was mailed out to people. I mean, you can debate it all day long, but when you publish something, when you ship it, if it worked or not. Immediately.
Yes.
And you can learn from that, and then you start to get data and you get insights, and you start to see what engages, and then you start to see what converts, and you start to see what builds your audience, and all of those different signals that are available to us in the digital world are only available to us when something gets published.
So what do you think about much of, I think, content marketing to date on a public basis has been brand content, right? It's kind of faceless. It's like, hey, we're Everyone Social, or hey, we're HubSpot, or hey, we're whoever, and that is the how the content is presented to the world. Thinking about going to employees to produce, in essence, UGC as kind of the most authentic and kind of engageable content. What do you think about the mix going forward between things that have someone's name and face attached to them that are clearly original content versus stuff being created and presented from a brand perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think brands should publish any content at all. I mean, there's the website itself is the only place, and I'm talking about non-blog pages, non-article pages. Your website it's the brand speaking about who we are, what we sell, why we're better. Here's maybe some customer stories. Here's our corporate, founding story. It's the brand talking. And there's a time and a place. There's a reason why engagement rates on corporate websites are the bounce rate is low. It's actually relatively low. It's something like 40, 50%. Whereas with blog articles, it's 80%, because when people land on your website and they want to know who you are, who Everyone Social is, they're engaging with that content because they're late in the stage of the buying process. When a piece of content is published that isn't from the brand, it absolutely needs a name attached to it. And so that's why, I usually work with brands in two ways. The first one is we create the kind of steady, frequent content that generates search engine results, from an organic perspective. It's keyword rich. It's focused on a couple of key themes. It answers the question, what do we want to be known for? But it always has an author. And usually that author is not me. It's someone like you from the brand, and who's speaking, not necessarily from a personal point of view, but just, hey, here's some education, some helpful content that I'm sharing as an individual to you. That's one thing, and that has SEO benefits for sure. It's generally not as engaging as when Cameron writes an opinion piece on the future of employee engagement. I think that's the second sort of arm that needs to be focused on, and that's really all about activating, as I've said, engaging with the folks that want to share stories, that have a point of view, that have expertise, that have knowledge that should be shared with the outside world. That can come from employees or customers. So you can call it UGC,
right?
But it's I always try. The reason I don't love the term advocacy is because for a lot of people, it sounds like, here's a press release, please.
Yes, it does.
Employees, please share it. And so it's not necessarily about advocating. Like I don't ever tell my clients to ask employees to advocate for the brand. I ask brands to tell their employees to advocate for whatever they want. At SAP, I used to tell potential contributors to our platform, I don't care if you love cats. Write about cats and show, videos of cats doing silly things, because somewhere out there is a CIO who also loves cats, and you're going to engage them, and he's going to be, or she's going to be pretty happy that finally there's a technology brand sharing cat videos. And that's the point, is don't ask people to advocate for the brand. Ask them to share what they know and what they love. And that's going to attract other people that have those same interests. And then that's going to have a positive impact on the brand.